Most of you know me, I think. Some of you don't know me, but just overall, to let you know who I am, I manage Smart Leads, our online leads program. And when I started with Royal LePage, I started with the Learning Services Department, and I was the coordinator um, for that for a couple of years until we launched Smart Leads. And you may be asking, well, why is Stephanie talking about mental wellness and things like that? And because before I worked with Royal LePage, I worked in social services for many years. And so that's sort of where my heart still lives a bit in, making sure that people are happy and doing well. So I had some experience at CAMH in a couple of different units, one in the detox and then another in a unit for people who were severely mentally ill. And I also worked at a group home for homeless women. And that one was really neat because that one I was kind of like a life coach, and I really help people rebuild their lives and start over. And then my last mental health related job before Royal LePage was a really good transition to being a teacher, in that one was at Hong Fook Mental Health Association. And there I facilitated workshops for people who work with newcomers specifically, and talked about mental illness, how to identify warning signs, and then really how to encourage people to get help. So we worked a lot about breaking down stigma. Breaking down stigma is something I'm very passionate about. And yeah, okay. So that being said, Josephine, are we good to kind of get started?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're good.
All right, good. Okay, so really I'm going to go over the following, really, why depression and anxiety are increasing, what's going on these days, what you can do to help yourself, and how to take care of people who are close to you. And the session will be recorded. Okay, so, I'm going to record it. We'll send out a copy of the recording. If you want, I'll even share the slides because some people just really like slides. A few rules for today's session. So please ask questions, right? So this is meeting style. So we're not going to be terribly formal. Sometimes I'll just yak and talk, but feel free to interrupt me at any point, and I will ask some questions. So I will ask for sharing, and you can do that in the chat if you prefer that, or you can talk. Okay. With that in mind, let's keep judgments away, okay? So I want people to feel as though this is a safe place. That also means if people choose to share, we want to keep the information here, right? So if somebody wants to divulge that they're having a challenge, you don't need to be, announcing that everywhere. Now, keep that in mind. Like I said, this is recorded and it is going to be shared with other colleagues. So, remember those few points. So I want to start off with a video. So let me just ensure that I can share my sound. All right. And I just want everyone to kind of listen and think. All right.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man asked for. Under pressure that burns a building down, splits a family in two, puts people on the streets. That's okay.
It's the terror of knowing what the world is about. Watching some good friends screaming, let me out. Pray tomorrow gets me higher. Pressure on people on streets.
Da 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 da. my brains round the floor. These are the days it never rains, but it pours. Dee-da-da-da, ee-dee-da-ba-ba, dee-da-da, ba-da. People on streets, da-da-dee-da-day. People on streets, da-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da.
It's the terror of knowing what the world is about. Watching some good friends screaming, let me out. Pray tomorrow, gets me higher, higher, higher. Turned away from it all like a blind man. I sat on a fence, but it don't work. Keep coming up with love, but it's so slashed and torn. Why?
Oh, love, 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 love. Insanity laughs. Under pressure we break. Why can't we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love that one more chance? Why can't we give love, 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 give love?
Is love such an old-fashioned word? And love dares you to care for the people on the edge of night. Love dares you to change our ways of caring about ourselves. This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. Under pressure. Pressure.
Under pressure.
Pressure.
Who else is trying? So I find that song really sums how I feel some days. And I think just the kind of general feeling that a lot of us are experiencing. I don't know about you guys. What did you think? Tell me in the chat. What did you think about that? And the fact is that we know anxiety and depression are increasing. Okay. Okay. So depression is the most common mental illness. And 15% of men, 25% of women experience it in their lifetime. But like I said, the numbers are at an all-time high. There was a survey done last December by the Canadian Mental Health Commission, and it said that 2 in 5 Canadians are reporting that their mental health has deteriorated since last March. Along with that, 1 out of 5 Canadians report an increased use in substances. Domestic violence, unfortunately, is increasing, or at least it's hard to tell. So, some of the stats that I was looking up, it was saying that calls to helplines are increasing, but calls to police are decreasing, and calls from concerned schools, families, and friends are decreasing because of the isolation that people are feeling. Child abuse is increasing. All of these things are increasing. I keep seeing this ad in Facebook, and I guess it's because Facebook knows that that I have a child, and so it's targeting me. And I looked this up, and apparently there's been a disturbing trend since the summer last year with infants coming to the hospital with head trauma. And think about how hard it is for new parents. On a good day, it's tough. And now with the isolation or potential job losses, all these things are culminating. We are under pressure. Now, it's not all horrible doom and gloom. Some of us, a lot of us, most of us have pretty good lives, but nevertheless, we still have these stresses that are building up, like working from home. Now, working from home has its challenges. And we were talking at the very beginning about, who likes it and who prefers being in the office. And I was saying, I'm one of the few people, I think, that really, really prefers working from home. But the people who miss it talk about missing the commute, because for some people that was their only alone time, and that's valuable time. Okay. Another thing that we do wrong at times is not having breaks when we're working from home. We just sit there all day. We miss that friendly banter with our colleagues, okay, and that increases our feelings of isolation, right? I used to sit next to people and turn around and chat. And we missed that. And then lastly, there's the family interruptions. And we'll talk about some parenting things in a while. But just the interruptions of having the children bouncing around behind you while you are trying to work can lead to a lot of stress. Now we have the isolation. So, we've lost a lot of those connections that we need, and we're missing our friends and our family. And one of the really awful things, and it's a catch-22, is sometimes we get tired of being on conference calls all days. We get the Zoom burnout, right? Where we just don't even want to talk to anybody. And so it's hard to motivate ourselves to get on the phone, to talk to our friends, to talk to our family, so we disconnect further. And this is increasing our feelings of loneliness. And this is a vicious cycle that we feed into to increase our feelings of isolation. So if you're feeling yourself having that Zoom burnout, push past it to reach out and have a phone call with people that you miss. Now, that being said, sometimes there's too much time together. So, those of us who live with people, I love my husband and child, but as much as I love them, sometimes I am tired of their faces. And you are probably feeling the same way at times, where you can find yourself bickering with each other because you are with each other too much. We need a break from each other at times. We need to have alone time, and a lot of us are missing that with the isolation. And winter, spring is around the corner, but winter has felt long. You can't go outside and go for a walk when it's freezing cold out. And then with that, there's the lack of activity that, now I know some people have been really taking advantage of this work from home situation and doing more exercise, and kudos to those people. I wish I was one of them. I'm not. And if you're like me, you're exercise probably used to consist of walking around the office. For me, that was my exercise for the day, right? Walking around the office, going to chat to someone, getting a snack at the snack thing, whatever. I was doing the stairs and I was really proud of that. But now I'm very sedentary, and you're probably the same way. And this is not good for our health either. This makes us feel like garbage, more so on top of all the other social factors. And I want to talk a little bit about this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anybody heard of this? If you've heard of this, type yes in the chat. Maslow was a psychiatrist or psychologist a couple 100 years ago or so, and he talked about how people have needs that kind of go in order of priority, right? So you have the most basic needs. You need to eat and breathe, right? And then it goes up from there. And right now, what's happening is that COVID is disrupting some of our most core needs, the ones that we need to kind of move on. So let's talk about the safety needs. So once an individual's physiological needs are satisfied, right? So the most basic ones at the bottom, food, that kind of thing, food and air. People want security and safety, okay? So people want order and predictability in our lives. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this and why this makes us feel really uncomfortable the longer the sense of disorder and lack of control lasts, okay? So COVID has disrupted our sense of safety in really our lives. And then after that is our love and belongingness. So, people are social creatures, and we have social needs and needs that are involved with feelings of belongingness. And when we lose those connections, we can feel really lacking and uncomfortable, I guess is a word that psychologists would use. It leaves us feeling empty is a better word that I like to use. So let's talk about plan and control. And I don't know about you guys. I'm a control freak. We talk about that in my family about, how mommy is the one that's the biggest control freak. So COVID has removed all of our sense of order, predictability, and control. And, the government regulations, they keep changing. So it's really difficult to adapt. We're not unadaptable. We know how to adapt, but one of the big challenges is once we adapt to one regulation, it changes again. We go from lockdown to open to lockdown to open. And then there's the stress of individual unexpected issues. A couple weeks ago, that we had a personal COVID scare. We got a phone call from the school saying, you have to pick up your son from school. One of the kids in the class has COVID. So pick him up, and we all had to get tested and self-isolate. And that just threw everybody for a loop. And what this does is it's this lack of stability, right? So like I said, we can handle COVID, people can handle diseases and stuff like that, but it keeps flip-flopping and changing. And when you don't have control of your brain, it starts reacting. You are wired to react with alarm bells for your own survival. That's how you are created and wired. And you get angry and frustrated and anxious, and then eventually depressed when you can't do anything with this anxiety. But it's normal to feel anxiety. Like, we're living with some scary shit, right? This is scary. It's unpredictable, like I said, and we're living really in this constant fight or flight feeling. Okay, do you guys remember this one from high school, fight or flight? And what this is when you encounter a perceived threat, like let's say a big dog barking at you, this little part of your brain called the hypothalamus. It sets off the alarm system, combination of nerve cells and hormones. It tells your body, your adrenal glands, your kidneys to pump out hormones, okay, and 2 hormones in specific, adrenaline and cortisol. And these are good hormones. They do a lot of good stuff for your body. They prep you for fighting because adrenaline makes your heart rate elevate. It increases your blood pressure. It pushes sugar into your bloodstream. It gets you ready to fight. And then what cortisol does is it suppresses non-essential fighting actions. Okay, so adrenaline pumps you up for fight. Cortisol shuts down things like your reproductive system functionalities, your digestive system, and it even suppresses growth of just like cells in general. Because when you're fighting, your body wants to put all its energy towards the fight. It doesn't want to use energy towards cell repair and growth, right? Okay, so it's this complex natural system that works with your body. And it's really, really effective to get you ready to run away from that dog or fight that dog. But the problem is that this is normally a short-term thing, right? You have your fight or you run away and then it's over and then your body balances out and you're fine. But when the stressors are always present, when you constantly feel under attack, that reaction, it stays turned on. And that's what a lot of us are feeling with the COVID situation these days. And, you know, it makes you sick. So I talked before about cortisol and how it slows down really cell growth and cell repair and cell health. Okay. So when that happens and it's stopping because you're having too much, this is what leads to increased weight gain. Even if you're doing, you know, all the right things, you're eating properly and whatnot. But if you're chronically stressed, your metabolism will slow down. You're going to have digestive issues. You know, you might be constipated. You could have headaches. You can have all kinds of problems just from too much cortisol because your body is overloading. Okay. So, and I know I'm talking all doom and gloom, but don't worry, we're going to talk about things that we can do very soon. Okay. Another thing that we are feeling is brain fog, and this is another byproduct of cortisol overload. So I don't know about you, but I've had times, and tell me if you've had times lately where, you know, you just feel like things take so much longer to do. You know, something that would take me an hour now is at times taking an hour and a half. And it's just searching for the right word. Now, the other thing that is difficult with this brain fog is it can make you feel fatigued, okay? And maybe fatigue's not the word, but exhausted. Things drain your energy. Something that was normally easy to do, you do, and you just feel wiped out after doing it. And that's because of the fight or flight being in overdrive, okay? Because your body is just sapped of energy because it's so freaked out. And then this leads to bad sleep and poor sleep. And poor sleep will affect the brain fog because sleep helps you consolidate your memories, process information. And so when you're not sleeping well, your ability to solve problems is affected, your alertness, your attention, concentration, your judgment, they all get impaired. And this can be due to all this stress that we're having that's messing with our sleep. And really, you know, I think a way to kind of sum it really up nicely is collective grief. Okay, that it's kind of the undercurrent of everything that we are experiencing right now. You know, let's be honest, we're grieving the loss of our lives as we know it and the way our lives have been, and we can't even look to the future with confidence in the way that we used to. So we have in our heads what is called a assumptive world. So it's basically the expectations that we have about daily life and routines, and our assumptive world has been shattered. Okay, and it's a very normal response to feel grief for that. Okay. Now, what do we do about this? So we have all these problems, but nevertheless, too many people are not accessing care. About half of people who report experiencing depression, anxiety have never sought help. And stigma is the biggest barrier. The next is access to care. Now, we don't have the issue of access to care, and I'll share some resources with you. We're very fortunate. We have OHIP, but we also have our work EAP. So we have access to care, but nevertheless, we still feel stigma for some reason. And there are people who feel fear of disclosing at work. They're afraid that if they tell their supervisor that they're struggling, that it'll be held against them. You know, there are people who are afraid to say if they need time off for a therapy appointment in the middle of the day. They're afraid to explain that as a reason that they need an hour or so off in the afternoon. Or maybe people who are afraid to explain that they have side effects from medication because of stigma. But I want to tell you guys, you are safe to disclose. Okay, we are so lucky. We are in a very good organization. There's no judgment, you know. So if you are having issues and you need to talk about it, and if it's affecting your work, you are safe to talk to a dean, Josephine, your direct manager. You will not be getting judgment, okay? And they can help you get what you need from the company to allow you to do your job, okay? So remember that, please. And I also want to remind everyone to take time off. So we have vacation time and personal days, and take time off if you need time to rejuvenate. You know, I took a half day off last week just because I was wiped out and I needed it. And recognize in yourself when you need to just have a break. And I know some people have told me, well, they don't want to take time off right now. They're kind of they're holding on to their vacation in the hopes that, you know, maybe in the summer or the fall or something they can go away on a trip. But I'm telling you, don't hoard your vacation time like that. If you need a break now, take a break. Now, if you don't need a break, but you just need accommodations to ensure that your work can be done properly, talk to your manager. Okay, so sometimes if people are feeling like the brain fog, for example, and you know you have a project, but you just know that you are feeling foggy and you know you can get it done, it's just going to take you a little bit longer, make it clear. Talk to your manager. We're not, like, people are not monsters. So people are understanding, but we need to make our needs known. Okay. But for more serious things, we do want to get professional help. And unfortunately, studies are showing that people are not seeing their doctors as regularly as COVID. A lot of people have, you know, most of us go and get our regular physical. We're good about that. But a lot of people stop that with COVID. And, you know, they stopped getting timely treatment. Some of it's not even our fault. Some things were canceled on us. We wanted treatment, but it was canceled on us. And anyway, so my point is that problems, have been getting worse, so get help if you need it, okay? And if you have a family doctor, they really ought to be the first person you go to for help if you think you have a mental illness. Now, if you don't have one, or maybe you just don't feel comfortable with them, because for whatever reason, there are other options out there. So our company EAP is great short-term counseling. You call the number, you tell them what your problem is, and then they'll refer you to the appropriate expert, and they're really goal focused, right? So you go in there, you tell them you have a problem, I'm having problem with my child, for example, and then they'll hook you up with a professional who will work on the goals. They do family counseling, like marriage counseling as well. So I talked before about how some partnerships are getting stressed out, and if you're feeling like you're kind of sick of your partner's face and you guys want to fight all the time, you could reach out to the EAP for a marriage counseling or partner counseling. Okay, so there's that. Now there's the mental health helpline. If you just want like kind of general and you don't know where to start, you can call that number, and that will tell you government resources. And then my awesome super secret resource that a lot of people don't know about is the Medical Psychotherapy Association of Canada. And this is physicians who practice psychotherapy who are covered by OHIP, because we do, so like I said, with the EAP, you can get short-term counseling, and then our benefits will cover a portion of counseling costs. I can't remember the exact, but it's a couple $100 a year or something, and then it maxes out. So if you need a lot of sessions, you could use all that up quickly. But with the Medical Psychotherapy Association of Canada, it's OHIP covered. So you can go on their website, you search by your area, and then they will give you a list of people who are open and waiting lists and their specialty. So check it out. It's a really good resource. So you may be wondering, well, what happens if you go and get professional help at a doctor's office or another, situation like that? What they're going to do is the doctor's going to ask you questions about your signs and symptoms. Tell me how you feel, and you're going to list stuff. They might even have a checklist and go through the checklist. And then they're going to ask you about how long things have lasted, because that's one of the key things with mental illness diagnosis specifically, right? Because everybody experiences depression and anxiety, everybody. But the problem, and I mean clinical level, right, diagnosable level, is there needs to be a certain amount of time, right? So depression, it has to be present for at least 2 weeks. Anxiety, it has to be present for at least 6 months to be diagnosable. And then there's about how much it interferes with your life. So you may be feeling kind of pervasive depression and anxiety, but if you can live with it and it's not really interfering with your life, you're still productive and stuff, I just call you melancholic, but you wouldn't be necessarily diagnosed with an issue, right? So it's about how much it interferes. And then they have to rule out physical conditions. And this is something that is closely tied to how I mentioned a lot of us have been missing our checkups with our doctors, because there are physical conditions that can mimic depression and anxiety if they're not diagnosed and treated. So a couple that I know off the top of my head is heart conditions. So heart or circulatory conditions in general, when they are not diagnosed and treated properly, can make you feel anxiety. You can have heart rates that are off, blood pressure that's off. You could be sweaty and just feel like nervous and jittery because you have a heart condition. There are hormonal imbalances like thyroid issues that can cause depression. So doctors always need to rule out the physical conditions as well. And then when it comes for treatment, really it's going to be a mix, depending on what the diagnosis really is and the cause. But most people who have a diagnosed mental illness are going to be doing a combination of biopsychosocial treatment. So biological will usually be medication. So there are antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications that can help people a lot get into the right kind of headspace to be ready for therapy and lifestyle changes. So I mentioned before, a lot of us are being too sedentary. That's not going to help us. Okay. So that's kind of the formal, what happens with treatment. Let's get a little more informal and talk about caring for others. This is what I get asked about a lot when people reach out to me for advice. They don't often ask for advice about themselves. It's usually, well, I have a friend or a family member, and they say, well, what do I do? How do I talk to them, Stephanie? And when somebody comes to you with a problem, whether it's related to a mental illness, stress, or just general problem, remember that people do not want to be judged. It may be a really big deal for them to open up to you, so don't ruin it by judging what they say. And you can show them that you are not judging by validating their feelings with active listening. So active listening is literally when you repeat back to somebody what they said. And sometimes when I talk about active listening, people say, well, that just feels silly. I don't want to do that. So, my partner comes to me and says, Stephanie, I'm feeling really sad today. And I repeat back, you're feeling really sad. That's active listening. And it may seem weird feeling if you're practicing it, but when you do it in the real world, or you're going to feel it more when someone does it to you and they active listen to you, it feels so darn good just to know that you've been heard, because that's what people want. It's so natural to try to problem solve, okay? And so don't give advice unless someone asks. And this is one that I have a hard time with. So I always have to preface when people come to me, do you want me to listen or do you want my advice? Because sometimes they do want my advice. But for a normal person, a regular person out there, we want to solve problems when someone comes to you and they're having a hard time. But I'm going to tell you, unless they have said to you, Stephanie, I want advice, all they want is just for you to listen. Okay, so listen without judging, listen without giving unrequested advice is going to be the best thing you can do to show someone that you care. Because sometimes all they need is an empathetic ear. Okay. And also know that while you may have good intentions, in some circumstances, you may inadvertently give someone bad advice. Okay. And we want to encourage people to go to the real doctor. Okay. Because, I want to give an example of bad advice, and this is toxic positivity. Do you know people like this who are just so freaking positive that it's like they're not even hearing you? When you tell somebody about a problem and you tell them, man, life is so hard these days. Work is stressing me out and the kids are on top of me all the time. And then they come back to you and say, well, you should be thankful that you have a job and at least you have children. Like, be happy that you have children. Aren't you happy? Be thankful for what you have, Stephanie. And I'm like, well, geez, dude, I now my feelings mean nothing. Right. So beware of toxic positivity and beware of when you may unintentionally do that to people. Because if you are trying to silver line it can basically tell people that their sad feelings are incorrect. It's your way of saying, well, you're wrong for feeling sad, Stephanie. Look at all the good that you have. And I want to talk about kids, okay? Because someone reached out to me. Exactly. It makes you feel guilty, like you shouldn't feel that way. That's exactly it. Because when someone, yeah. Oh, Stephanie, well, at least you have a job. You should be thankful. well, now I feel like a jerk and I should be. Yeah, exactly. Now, kids are having a rough time. We know, I mean, adults are having a rough time. I can't even fathom being a child right now. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about kids, and I want to see you guys in the chat talk about how you deal with a child with an active imagination who is anxious about this whole situation. Okay. Because we know kids, their little minds go. Okay. So what do you recommend for a kid with an active imagination who is feeling anxious about this? Well, you guys write some stuff in there. I want to talk a little bit about kids. Now, I'm not a child expert, right? And I have one, but that's about as much as I know about them, apart from the bit that I did study in school. But you know what I'm hearing from a lot of parents and a lot of people are telling me is there's an issue of separation anxiety that they're seeing with their kids. And we talked before about how these changes of regulations, you know, you're at home, you're learning from school, you're learning at home, you're learning from school, back and forth, this craziness. Some of the kids got really used to being with their parents and then getting back into in-person school. It's like the first day all over again, but with COVID rolled up into it. Okay. And that is tough for little ones. And I know that we experienced that when we moved. My son had not been in school since last March. And then we moved out of Toronto in November, and we put him in in-person class. We moved to a small town and put him in in-person class. And it was really tough for him. One, separation anxiety, because he was so used to being at home all the time. He went back to like almost being like a 3-year-old, and he's 6.5. But also he was acting out a lot at school because he just lost those good habits of behaving. Okay. But kids experience depression, anxiety at the same rates as we do, probably even more. It's really hard to measure it with children because they don't have the words that we do. So it's really common for kids to be complaining about a tummy ache or a headache or other physical things. And let me tell you, there's 2 big reasons why they do this. One, sometimes they just don't have the words for their emotions. Actually, there's 3 reasons. Okay, one, sometimes they don't have the words. They just can't articulate it. But they know they feel yucky. And, you know, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm upset and I have anxiety, I have a tummy ache too, or I get a headache. And kids get that too. Okay, so we have those 2 things. But here's the other thing that I want people to think about. If you have kids that are talking about, you know, I don't feel well, so I have to stay home from school. They know that's a get out of school card, right? So they know that if they're not feeling well, and especially with COVID, now the alarm bells are off, right? If they have a tiny symptom, they get sent home. But have you ever told your kid they could stay home for a mental health day if they're having a sad day or a scared day? Because I'm putting it out there, and I put it out there before, that we should do that for ourselves. If we are feeling overwhelmed, if we feel like we need a day off, your kids are in the same boat. So maybe we need to start talking to our children about this, you know? And, you know, my suggestions for talking to children, really, it's the same as my suggestions as I did with talking with an adult. We listen without judgment. And it's important also to ask them to explain how they perceive things, okay? So we get them to explain what they think and feel about the situation, validate their feelings, but then we need to correct the incorrect assumptions, okay? So little Billy comes to me, Mommy, I have a tummy ache. Okay, well, you know, Billy, let's talk about it. and we explore some feelings, and it turns out, he says, you know what, mommy, I'm actually just really scared. All this talk about COVID, and you know, I got sent home from school 3 weeks ago because a kid in my class had it. I am scared that it's going to happen again. I'm afraid that I'm going to get it, you know, and everything is scary. And then you say, you know what, yeah, Billy, it is scary, and it's normal to be worried about these things, but the school is doing everything they can, and you are doing everything that you can, and we're being safe. So it's okay to be scared, but it's not as scary as you think it might be. And if you need a day off to chill out, let's have a mental health day together, okay? So that's my tips for children. Now, for us, okay, as grown-ups, what can we do for our own sanity? Limit checking in on the latest news to short, defined periods. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I stopped watching the news a couple months ago, and I am so freaking happy. I don't care about the news. When I want to know what's going on, I just go on YouTube and I look for the latest COVID update to see what zone I'm living in and what's open. Apart from that, I don't need to watch the news every day. And neither do you. It's not doing you any good. And when you're looking at stuff, make sure it's from reliable news sources only. So stay away from fake news and all these crazy, you know, scandalous things. Okay, so that covers facts, but sometimes we know it, but then we don't feel it, right? So I can say to myself, well, I know the facts, but I still don't feel it. And as I was preparing for the session, I looked, I asked myself, well, who can I look to for inspiration? And I found this really awesome young man named Sam Burns. And he was a motivational speaker with a disease called progeria. And he said that he was very much aware of the things that he can't do, like ride a roller coaster. But instead of focusing on those, he instead focuses on the things that he can do and the things he's passionate about. So, you know, I hope you can find inspiration from Sam, how to find peace and happiness in spite of COVID, in spite of the fact that you cannot control a lot these days. You can control some things, and you can focus on what is possible. You cannot control the situation, but you can control your reaction, okay? So don't argue with reality. You will always lose if you try to argue with reality. So just control your reaction to our current situation. Worrying is sapping your energy. And, you know, there's a good saying, and it's, if you can do something about it, then do it. And if you can't do something about it, then just accept it as it is. And we really need to remember that about COVID, because we have the ability to change our thoughts. We do not have the ability to change our feelings, but if you change your thoughts enough times, it will in turn influence your feelings, and that's a fact. So we need to do a mindset shift, okay? You are not stuck at home. You're safe, okay? Mindset shift. Concentrate on factors within your control. And this is one of the things I talked about when you're talking to your children and their anxieties. Concentrate on what you can control. You're washing your hands. You are wearing your mask appropriately. The likelihood of you getting something is very small. So we don't even need to be worried too much about that, right? Now we need to challenge our extreme thoughts. Okay, so we talked before about just getting us out. We got to get out of this fight or flight and concentrate on what we can control. But also, let's not be too rough on ourselves and have a little self-compassion. Allow yourself some time and have a little freak out. It's okay to cry. Okay, let me repeat that again. It's okay to cry. Have a good cry and carry on. Now, remember that you are strong. Okay, when you find yourself doubting how far you can go, how much you can handle, remember the things you have faced and overcome in the past, all the battles you won and all the fears you made it through. So this picture, for those of you who don't recognize this lovely lady, is me, believe it or not. So this was from the summer 2013. And I don't know if you can tell by that photo, but I'm very thin and very pale in that picture. And the reason for that is this was shortly after I got out of the hospital. And I was finally strong enough to move. I was golfing. I have some friends took me out golfing. But I had been in the hospital for almost 2 months. And I nearly died from a terrible infection. And there was a few times during that sickness that I did want to die. I was so sick and I was in so much pain that I actually asked the nurses, I said, kill me, I can't do this anymore. I remind myself that I made it through that. When I feel down and when I feel like, things are rough, I made it through that. So, put in the chat if you've ever experienced something that you thought you couldn't make it through, but you made it. Like, have you ever had your heart broke so bad that you thought you couldn't go on? Or did you get fired from a dream job? Maybe failed a class in university. You don't have to necessarily share what it went through, but I can guarantee you have all gone through something so hard you thought you would never make it through, but you are all here. Okay, you are all here right now, and remind yourself that you are strong and you can make it through things. Okay, now here's another good one. My apartment building caught fire last summer and my family was homeless for a couple of weeks. In result of that, this was the fire. That's where I used to live. And I experienced pretty severe PTSD after the fire. We moved back in. It wasn't our unit, so our stuff was safe, which was good. We were far from the damage, but we went back in the building afterwards and I was on edge for a very long time, to the point where I couldn't live there anymore. It terrified me. And that became the worst thing that I lived through. But it was a catalyst for change because it led to me buying my first home. Okay, so without that PTSD, I would not have been motivated enough to get the hell out of there and have my own place. So, remember, life is amazing, and then it's awful. Then it's amazing again. And then in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing. Hold on through the awful and exhale and relax during the ordinary. And that's living. Heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. Your life is filled with ups and downs. Remind yourself of this during your downs, that there is going to be an up around the corner. Now, you can do a few things. Okay, you can give yourself stuff to look forward to in spite of all the craziness, in spite of changing restrictions and rules. You still need things to look forward to because, let's be honest, life feels pointless without goals. We need direction. Okay, so I'm a firm believer in the power of hobbies. Hobbies are important. They're huge because that's where we can have something that has no rules and no expectations except for making us happy. Okay, so get a hobby if you don't have one. Make plans. Make plans for time off. Okay, and make plans that you can stay with. So don't make plans to go on a vacation in Cuba next summer or whatever, because that might not happen. But make a commitment to take time for yourself. And, I like to create goals that I can control. So I talked before about being a control freak. And if you are one like me, gardening is a great thing. So these are my starters. I've got my little seeds started. I'm very excited to get out there and get my hands in the dirt. Creating goals that you can control gives you back that lost sense of control. Okay, now mindfulness. I want to bring up mindfulness, okay, because when we're having a freak out, and I said before, you know, it's okay to give yourself some time. Allow yourself to have feelings, because if you hold them in, you're going to blow up eventually. But that being said, you can't just go off all the time. So eventually we do need to control ourselves in a sense. And being mindful really helps us control our feelings and our emotions. And it does that by helping us stay present in the moment right now, not even 2 seconds from now, the moment. At this very moment, we are all in a very good place. We're all warm, hopefully a belly full. We are breathing and our bodies work. So being mindful really means being present. And children are so good at that, right? So I love this picture here because it illustrates it perfectly, of an adult and a kid out for a walk. And we got the adult and he's thinking about, you know, work and TV shows and what to make for dinner and all this crap, not even noticing the sunshine in the flowers. Okay, so get out there and smell the flowers and truly smell them. Truly smell them. And that allows you to be free from the pains and the regrets of the past, and also free from the worries of the future. Okay, so, you know, you can do mindful breathing. And that is when you really just focus on your breath. And it's a good way to calm down if you're feeling overwhelmed. And just you try to count to 10 without any distractions. Slowly. Don't do a speed count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's not going to work. Normal count with every breath in and out, and that will help you. So I want to recap what I talked about here, right? Depression, anxiety, professional help, how to take care of people close to you, and then specific, you know, about the COVID anxiety and depression that we are feeling. And I'm gonna put this one up here. And now I want to kind of open up the floor, right? If you guys want to chat, I know we're a couple minutes over time, but I do have extra time. So if people want to talk, ask questions, share thoughts and feelings, now's the time to do it. Feel free to unmute yourself and even put yourself on camera if you want. Putting up my info too. Not sure if people are just absorbing. Sometimes things like this, people don't necessarily want to share, and that's cool, but I got my info here. So that's my email. Feel free to email me if you want to talk about things. I love that. Awesome, Nelia. So Nelia is saying that she likes the idea of a mental health day for our kids. Yeah, absolutely, right? Because any of the self-care that we apply to ourselves, we can do it, a kid version, right? So if we're telling ourselves to take a break, they need a break too, right? They're just, you know, yeah, they're just at school. But school's really intense for them, and the world is pretty rough for them these days. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Meredith. Thank you. You know, I really, really enjoy this kind of thing. And yeah, and like I said, this is recording. So I will send a copy of the recording to Josephine so she can send it off to everyone. And then, yeah, if you feel like joining me again on Friday, I'll be doing this again on Friday at 2 p.m. So that would be nice to see you as well. I'm going to sign off because I don't see any questions coming in, anything for follow-up. But like I said, feel free to email me if you want to talk about anything further. Thank you, everyone. Bye.